He got the flag. Got the flag.
Hannah loves it, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. She just loves it. Welcome to Sawdust Talk, episode 111. We are joined tonight by Mike from Calavera Tools. I am one of your hosts. My name is Jessie, and I'm from Building Jessie. We also have Ben down here from Little Bug Woodworking. We're going to take a quick second before we get started to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Surf Prep for, having the best personalities. They're not abrasive, but their abrasives are. So for all your sanding needs, visit Surf Prep. You can use code Sawdust Talk.
Sawdust Talk. Nope, just good old-fashioned Sawdust Talk.
Good old-fashioned Sawdust Talk for 10% off. What do you say, 99% of the website?
99.9. And just to clarify, the code is not good old-fashioned Sawdust Talk. It's the word Sawdust Talk.
Just Sawdust Talk.
Yeah, Sawdust
Talk. Also want to thank George Supply Co. If you need any branding, website, or merch, visit them.
Oh,
so welcome.
See, awesome. Mike, I can already tell we've got Two Dogs Leatherworks in here, so we've got at least one person that's in your realm of the maker space.
Nice.
At least one guy.
So, which is kind of funny because somehow or another, like I think I was telling you earlier offline that I was not like a born leather worker. I was not a raised leather worker. I was in corporate for 15 years and got sick of working for the man and was like, oh, I could start a business. Why don't I learn how to sew and make leather goods? And, super crazy short version. That's kind of how things went. I started a company, bought a company, sold a company. And then I was like, well, what the hell do I do now? I think I'll just make these aprons that everybody loves. So literally, almost 9 years later, that's kind of where I am. But the point about the leather goods guy is that, the leather goods, the leather making community on Instagram is very robust, let's say, just like the woodworking community. And no disrespect whatsoever to the leather crowd, but I am a non-traditional leather worker. Like, I use a lot of fire where fire doesn't normally get used on leather goods because fire is fun. But I'm a woodworker at heart who just happened to figure out how to make some cool stuff out of leather. But no, I'm extremely fortunate for to have so many good friends in the leatherworking community, and I learn a whole lot from them. I'm not sure they're learning a whole lot from me. So it's a little one-sided, but I'm okay with that if they are.
I don't know. Every other leather worker post that I see, somebody's setting fire to something. Like what? Okay, I don't know much about leather other than it's not wood. What is with like the putting glue on stuff and then you set it on fire? Like what is that just for like effect or is that a process? What is that?
Most frequently asked question. There are two really good answers for that. And yeah, you definitely got one of those, which was for effect. It looks cool. But in fact, so as a small business, person, as a maker, I'm scrambling around just like anybody else. It's like, you're trying to get orders out the door, but you also have to feed the content beast, right? You got to feed the social media beast. So it's like, oh, this will make a great video. So let me take 10 minutes and produce, a 1 minute process video showing how I make this whole apron from start to finish. And, as I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but, making videos is hard. Like making process videos where you have 100 different freaking cuts, like, or I say 150, whatever it is, 20, 2, 5, 2. It's not an easy thing. And, I've learned this. I can attest to this, but, so anyway, so the fire, so I use the fire. It started off because if you light this glue that I use, this contact cement, which is made specifically for leather, one, if you light it up, it sets on fire, makes this really cool orange flame. Two, very toxic. You really want to blow that stuff out as fast as possible. You really don't want to be breathing that. But the key reason is this, and why I started doing it, is because if I'm hustling, if I'm hauling ass making a video, that setting fire to the glue makes it set super fast. So whereas I might have to otherwise wait 5 minutes until it, dries to tackiness, if I light it on fire, it's immediately ready. And then I just blast through it. So if I'm making videos, if I'm producing content, I set it on fire. And it looks cool.
It does look cool. It looks really cool.
Sometimes I'm worried that I overdo it. Like I feel like I'm in a little bit of a trap. Like I made a video today where I put glue all over something, but it wasn't flammable glue. It's a water-based glue. And I didn't set it on fire. And all I could think is people are going to be disappointed that I did not set this on fire. But had it been the flammable type, there was so much glue on it that the whole place would have gone down in flames.
Does it damage the leather at all when you set it?
No. As fast as I do it, it's real quick. If you leave it on there for longer than I do, then yes, you could definitely damage the leather. But what I'm doing, it never gets past the glue.
Okay.
But yes, you talk about too much fire. There's no such thing. I mean, have you ever seen a Michael Bay film? Like,
did you see my reel 2 days ago where there was a legitimate explosion behind me? Like, no, that is the perfect amount of fire. Like, and all I could think was I needed another 2 gallons of gasoline in that 5-gallon bucket. Like, there was not enough fire. There was an absolute literal explosion behind me with a freaking mushroom cloud. And all I could think the whole time was, yeah, could have used another 2 gallons.
Yeah, those are the intrusive thoughts that at a certain point, then you have to start like talking to a professional about.
I think I got a lot of responses to that. I might have set my own record for number of responses I've gotten to a video. Most of the comments extremely positive. Everybody generally in favor of explosions and fire. Got a few that were not, let's say they were nonplussed with my setting fire to a trash pile and using gasoline. They were not happy about that at all. But yeah, so they'll be all right. But lots and lots of comments. Oh, so one of my responses was that I am not a trained professional, but I set stuff on fire all the time. So maybe when I set myself on fire and spontaneously combust, y'all will have this recorded and me saying that, and it'll play on the newsreels, right? Like, man explodes on Johns Island, South Carolina, followed by this clip right now of this 30 seconds of me saying, I'm not a trained professional, but I set stuff on fire all the time.
Well, I mean, this is your full-time job. Technically, everything you do is what a professional does.
And bonus points, it's all a tax write-off. So it's like everything I do is a tax write-off. All I got to do is turn the camera on, for God's sake.
So, Mike, what you need is a Karen neighbor like I have, because I love setting stuff on fire. She likes to call the fire marshal on me every time a bonfire. Oh, yeah. And this last weekend we had a bonfire, and I'm like, the wind was going in the wrong direction. I just wanted to like waft it at Karen and be like, here you go, call on me, I don't care.
And where do you live?
Northwest Washington.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so down here in South Carolina, there are other rules, and those other rules include not having a whole lot of rules. And where my shop is, I am on a not a huge farm. We're on a, how do I say? I say that my shop is on an island in the middle of a swamp which in itself is in the middle of another big island, which is right off the coast of South Carolina. So I am surrounded by swamp and wildlife and water and beautiful forests and everything like that. But and so yeah, I'm way back in the woods. But my landlord is a contractor, and he has a burn pile on his private property, which is totally legal down here. And he's been doing that for the last 40 years. I ain't gonna stop him. So when he tells me that fire needs to get lit, and I'm like, well, I just so happen to have 3 extra gallons of gasoline. Let's go. And so yeah, ain't nobody calling the cops, except for maybe some of the folks on Instagram who were in that comment section who did not appreciate it. They were from Southern California. I should read you what I wrote in my response. It was, but I'm not going to. It was like this long. I was just like, I try to be a good person. I catch and release. I pick up litter. I volunteer, and I do nice things for people. And yes, I did set that pile of trash on fire because it was going up in smoke anyway. So everybody just needs to get over it.
I'm surprised you weren't more upset with the fact that you used gasoline. I mean, the price of gas.
This is true.
That's like $47.
Yeah. Not here. It's pretty cheap, and it was old gas. It had been in a can for a long time, so it was past its prime. Yeah, they'll be all right too.
Well, next time, another option that you could do is you could find yourself your woodworker buddy and get their dust collector bin, get a little fire, and then you just dump that in, and then you have a lot of problems.
You know what is also excellent for fires? Since we're on this topic, Christmas trees. And I've got one more Christmas tree. We kind of stash Christmas trees behind the house for just this effect. And I don't even video these. Why have I not been videoing this? But Christmas trees a couple of months later are magnificent. They are all but explosions unto themselves. You throw a good sized 8-foot Christmas tree that's 3 months dry onto a fire, and it's like fireworks. It's amazing.
And the snap, crackle, pop.
Oh, it's so good. You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. You're a man after my own heart. I love it.
Yeah.
You talk about Christmas trees like plural. Do you have a Christmas tree in every room of your house, or do you like collect them and you have like a fine vintage of like, oh, this is a 97 evergreen?
No. We have one Christmas tree a year, and it's usually fairly big. But then my kids somehow go around and find them around the neighborhood. People put them out on their front drive, and so my kids have been picking them up. So clearly they got, they're learning.
They're just like little mini pyros that you created.
I will say they generally leave the fire to me, but they know how much I enjoy it, so they like to watch.
Oh, those are good kids.
Yes, indeed.
So if we, I feel like we jumped right in, but is there, do we want to take a step back and like maybe talk about like how did you get into the maker community? What was your first step into it? Like, how did that happen?
Sure. So I always like to recite the quote from Beetlejuice when he talks about going to Juilliard, even though I did not go to Juilliard. Sorry, digress. So I let's see, what did I do? I started building furniture when I was probably 12 years old. Other kids were, my friends were playing video games or I don't know, stuff. And I was building furniture, and it was a very odd thing to do where I grew up, just small town, South Carolina. And but I loved it. Like I had to be always making something with my hands. And so I always thought that I wanted to be a woodworker, but then as I got older and that decision-making time came about, after maybe a couple of years in corporate, I was like, I would suck owning a woodworking business because I spend so much time. Like it takes me a year to build a piece of furniture. There is no way that I can build furniture for a living and be profitable. But so anyways, I got to put that to the side. And but as a hobby, I've probably built half the furniture in my house, which is kind of funny. I never show any of that on Instagram, but I can build a mean piece of furniture. I just don't show it, because my channel's really more about leatherworking, or showing the process and what we're selling, which is a whole other topic. But so then I got a job working for a company, Stanley Bostitch, in the pneumatics department, so nail guns. And very, very quickly, I was like, wait a second, somebody's going to pay me to use power tools all day long. I don't have to go to a job site. I just got to go sell these power tools. And they're going to pay me to use these, and they're going to give me all the power tools that I can stand. And that sounds freaking awesome. So yeah, sign me up. So anyway, I get into the power tool industry, and then I went back, took a break from that, went back to business school, turned down a really sweet internship at DeWalt, because at the time I thought, I need to get out of power tools. I don't think that this is where my long term is. Like I need to go into finance or technology or something like that. And this is business school brain, thinking that I need to get away from just what I'm passionate about and focus more on some big money making thing. And so I did that for the summer. I went to work for a technology firm in Chicago, and it was the most miserable 3 months of my life. It was just boring. There was not one single thing for 3 months resonated. Nothing was engaging at all. Learned how to build a website. I got to do some cool stuff, but it was in this gigantic soulless company. And I was just like, I could not do that. There is no way on earth I could do that for a living. So anyway, dug back into what I actually wanted to do, which was power tools and construction and woodworking. And so I went to work for Bosch Power Tools as a product manager. So I designed table saws and miter saws for Bosch in the early 2000s. Most of those products are still on the market. So they're benchtop, all of their miter saws, including that hinge guy, I had a pretty major role in, as a product manager. So I had a team of engineers. And then, and I don't know whether you guys even know this, because it's going to sound, maybe it sounds disingenuous, I don't think, because now I'm talking about it, but I don't talk about this. But so like I say, I don't know if you guys know this. But so then I get a call from a headhunter, and they say, we're hiring for this director of product management job, potentially to be vice president of marketing at this other power tool company. And I'm like, where? They said Lebanon, Indiana. I was like, there are no power tool companies in Lebanon, Indiana. And so I said, and plus I'm already at this premium company, Bosch Power Tools. I'm not going anywhere else. I don't want to go work for some lesser brand. And I'm like literally going to hang up the phone. And she said, but wait, what if I told you it was Festool? And so I was like, yeah, that was the only company that I would have possibly said yes to. So I said yes. And in fairly short order, I was the vice president of marketing, product management, brand management, training, and a few other things for Festool USA, North America. And I did that for about eight and a half years. And it was fantastic. It was literally like in our industry, could you ask for a better job? Got to travel the world, kind of like a rock star, go over to Germany, piss the Germans off every single time. They loved me, but they hated me. So anyway, like I say, I don't really talk about that because I'm so much more, that's been 9 years ago at this point. And I enjoy what I do now so much more than I ever enjoyed that. And and I don't mean to get all heavy about it, but if I'm going to have a legacy, I would rather it be Calavera and making cool shit like this than working for a bunch of Germans and, in some thankless corporate job. And I say thankless. I had a great run. You could not have asked for a better situation. The owners of Festool were fantastic. We took that company from nobody knew who we were to one of the biggest brands in the power tool industry. So it was a good run. So that's how I got into this. Was got in for the free power tools. And I'm not kidding. Like I started doing all of this because of the free power tools. But that was one of the biggest learnings during that business school internship was I'm going to be so much better if I actually care about what I'm doing. And I knew that what I cared about was having my hands on a product and understanding how a product is used and actually giving a damn about the finished product. And so what I found, to back up just a second, was that I'm by no means the smartest person in any room, but I understood how to use power tools. And I'd be in a board meeting at Bosch or Festool, and I was the only person in the room who had any idea how to use those tools. You know, they could talk around them, and the engineers knew them backwards and forwards. And, you know, the trainers certainly knew from a technical standpoint, but, you know, from a real world application standpoint, in so many instances, I was the expert, and I understood how they worked at a very organic level. You get what I'm saying. And as a result, people looked at me when the questions were asked, and it was like, well, yes, this is why we need to do this. And you know, it gave me the confidence to build the Festool brand into what it was by the time I left. And I like to think, well, let me say my successor came in total, I can say this, total jackass. The guy was literally, he was just not the brightest. And he was so, I think he came in after me, and he was so upset that I had so much control for so long. And he systematically dismantled so much of what I had done. And I think they felt it for a few years. And then, you know, it sounds like the ship's been righted, and, you know, I think they're doing great now. But, you know, maybe a couple of missteps, but that's all in the rear view. And like I say, I hardly ever talk about it because I find that so not interesting compared to what I get to do on a daily basis now.
I think it's really interesting.
I think it's all made up. The whole thing's, this is all, I think you just made all that up, because I've never seen a sustainer in a single one of your posts. And I have to believe that Festool has to have some sort of like sustainer for life clause.
No, let me say, I have a great relationship with at least one person there. See, look, Festool. I got that. I got some other stuff. But no, I used to have a wall of Festool before I left Indiana. Because of course I was in Lebtucky, Indiana for Festool. But after I left, what I realized was I had the wall of Festool. I mean, I had practically every single product that Festool had launched in North America, because that was my job, was, you know, to have these tools and to use these tools and understand them better than anybody, so that then I could sell and market them and teach them and everything else. And so I had all of these tools. But what I realized, and we were about to move to South Carolina, what I realized was I have all these tools, but I only use a fraction of them. Like, why do I have a wall of tools? And what I realized was that I had become, and I'm going to say this again, this is 9 years ago. Nobody cares. Festool's certainly not paying any attention.
Excuse you. We're big time.
No, I'm just saying they don't pay any attention to me. You guys are definitely big time, but don't ask me for a contact at Festool, because I could introduce you to my favorite person there, but I don't think Minnie is, you know, Minnie's got some pull. I don't know how much pull Minnie's got in that respect. But I was a collector, and when I was there, I don't want to say we made fun, but it was like, we're not marketing to the collectors. We don't want to build the brand around collectors. We want to build a brand around professionals, because professionals are going to need more tools. They are going to need more accessories and consumables. They're going to understand why we're selling this track saw for $700 versus Joe Consumer, who's like, you know, going to kick the tires for the next 3 years. So our focus was all on professionals. But I guess my point is, you know, we didn't mind people who would buy one of every single thing, but you know, it was kind of like, okay, these retired engineers are going to buy this $1,000 tool. They're never going to use it. They're going to put it on their mantelpiece so that their buddies see it and they love it, and they can brag that they bought the latest Festool. And I realized that I was that guy, and I sold all of them.
I have a story about a collector, not of Festool, but of woodpecker stuff.
I say it because Rich Hummel's a good friend of mine, but yes, woodpeckers is right there.
So early last year, it had to have been last year. Dan and I stumbled across a estate sale somehow that had like the estate planner, like the estate people, like they always try and like hype up the right crowds for what they're selling, but they never know what they're talking about. So we got like, you know, oh, like woodworker special, which usually means like a contractor saw and a couple of hammers, things like that. But I had just picked up a drum sander from some dude who was storing this thing like in his little apartment, which was crazy in itself. But I call up Dan. I'm like, hey, come meet me at this estate sale. It's over by your house. Let's go check it out. And we walk in day one. This dude had like every single catalog from Woodpecker, like would show up every month. And he just ordered what he didn't have.
Yeah.
Never opened any of it. Like this entire house and a back shed and a basement to the gills with woodpecker stuff, with Bridge City stuff, like the old stuff. I mean, he had everything. So I get the collectors.
Yeah. And so, and not to draw it back around to me, but I didn't want to be a collector. Like I want to be a user. I want to have stuff and make use of stuff that I can get some value out of. And then, you know, if I can hook somebody else up with something that I'm not using, then I'll do that. But so I had this gigantic wall of Festool, and I sold all but the Rotex is my favorite Festool of all. I love the Rotex. Everybody else hates sanding, but I actually kind of love sanding. Weird. Sorry, now all of a sudden nobody's watching anymore because I just said I love sanding. Everybody just dropped off. I've got the Rotex sander is key. Dust extraction, the MFT tables are amazing. TS saw naturally. I don't currently own a domino. I'm just not making enough furniture right now. But you know, I had sold it to a buddy. No, excuse me. I traded it to a buddy of mine for a shotgun. So I can always go over and get it from him.
Well, yeah, you got a shotgun.
I got a shotgun. No, it was a really nice Obra.
Get back.
I had wanted for a long time. But I quit being a collector and started focusing on more what I actually need. And, you know, a good example is like the Festool routers, and then we could quit talking about Festool. But the Festool routers, I saw somebody, I'm trying to remember who it was, maybe Forest Design, the other day. He was using the OF 1400, which is, I wouldn't say the flagship, but it's like the meat of the, you know, it's the number one. It's the best router in the lineup. It's not the biggest. It's not the smallest. Just right in the sweet spot of size. It's a really fantastic router. And he had the dust extraction on it. And the dust extraction on that router is absolutely just mind-blowingly good. You just got to put that chip collector on it. And he's going and doing putting a bevel or a chamfer, whatever the hell it was, on this gigantic round piece. And you did not see one single chip flying anywhere. Every bit of it was completely collected. But that's not really how I would work. So I'm not really going to get the value out of all of that dust and chip collection. and I'm not going to get the value out of all of that precision. And so let me transition and say, one of the questions I used to get a lot was, somebody starting off in woodworking, and they'd be like, well, what tool should I buy? Like, should I just go buy a bunch of Festool, or, what's a really good brand to, to learn on? And I was like, no, don't. And I used to say this when I was at Festool. I'm not talking out of school. I said this for all the years I was at Festool, was if you are not a professional or you're not using this on a daily or at least regular basis, don't buy this tool. And, if you're going to buy the Rotex and not the dust extraction, forget it. Don't buy either one of them. You're wasting your money. And so what I would tell a brand new woodworker is go buy some hand tools, go buy some chisels, back saw, and, some small hand stuff so that you could learn the actual basics of woodworking. Don't just go buy some big CNC machine. And I'm not saying that, that doesn't work out for some people. I think if you're business minded and you're just dying to go make some stuff on a CNC, God love you. But if you really want to get into woodworking, you don't necessarily need the fancy stuff to get going. You need the basics, and you learn with the basics, and you hand cut those mortise and tenons, and then you move up to the domino later on as poetic license, where you know how to do it this way, but you're doing enough of it where you really need to hustle. Or if you just got boatloads of money, sure, go buy $10,000 worth of power tools, but you certainly don't need it.
I'm feeling attacked with my army of robots behind me.
Oh no, not at all. I don't no shade whatsoever. I mean, this is my market, man. This is seriously, anybody using a CNC or lasers or it's the maker community. I mean, people find a way to make what they want, what they can envision. They find a way to make it with whatever tools. I'm just saying that somebody who has a strong desire to get into like deep dive, classical woodworking is probably not the right word. But that kind of stuff, like my personal recommendation, having come from Festool, I'm just saying that I think there's a lot to be gained from starting. And you knew the basics. You knew how to do the basics before you bought all of that stuff. I'm certain of it.
I will say though, I love what you're saying, because I think it's a thing within the community. We have a great community of people, but somebody new coming in is going to look around and they're going to see all these people with these fancy Festool dominoes and these fancy tools and lasers and CNCs and stuff, and think that they need all of those things to be successful. And that's not true. I mean, even some people like, Lizzie, big scroll saw artist. She didn't start on a Pegasus. She started on a cheap, crappy little one that, she made it work until she could upgrade to the next one. But
and that,
so I love
you put that so much better than I did, is that you don't need the fancy stuff to do whatever. Start with the basics, get your feet wet, and then move. And I guess one of the things that I was saying, and I'm not trying to backpedal here, but and here I may get crucified for saying this, is I'm not saying that CNC is not woodworking. I'm saying that there are different disciplines, different aspects of woodworking. And as an old guy, I have a certain kind of woodworking in my mind. But what I said is, like, if you get into this and you say, I want to be a CNC or a scroll saw artist, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, absolutely, God love you. I think that's fantastic. And I'm not saying that's not woodworking. I'm just saying that you're focusing on a specific area. So if you want to do CNC, then get a basic CNC. What is it, like a shop bot or something like that? Get the basics, learn that, and then move up. It doesn't have to be the hammer and chisel to carve out that nice, cute little live, life, love sign.
I don't think people do those anymore.
I hope they don't do that anymore.
you guys, no, you laugh, but it's ironic. I'm in the
I
middle
love
of producing like the whole line of like white girl saying signs right now for this craft fair that I'm doing next
Yeah.
week. Next week? Oh God, it's
Yeah.
next week. So like I'm getting I'm making all sorts of live, laugh, love stuff and lots of cowgirl stuff. Gotta keep the white ladies happy.
Right. So that brings up a whole other thread on this, which, let me dig myself out of my hole and segue into something else. But I was talking to somebody the other day who was, talking about how they were so sick of making charcuterie boards and the style that they were making, and how sick of, resin and epoxy and everything else they were. And, they were like, this trend will be over in, a couple of years, or, soon, whatever it was. And I could be totally wrong on this, but I disagreed. I was like, nope. I said, and it's the white girl stuff. I think we can say that, right? It's the white girl stuff. Like, they're not in our maker community. They don't follow 1,200 people who are making stuff, making beach vistas, like rolling tides with epoxy and a heat gun. Like, they're not following those people on Instagram. They're following people that look like them on Instagram. So when they go into a store or a craft market and they see, the river table, or the river coffee table, or the river charcuterie board, or the river live, laugh, love, like, they're like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I love this. And they will for the next 10 years. River tables ain't going nowhere. Us three might get totally sick of them. They're going to be around plenty of time, because there's so many people that never see them. They are not saturated in the market of people who will continue buying them for the next 10 years.
Well, that's the thing with a lot of things. That's super general to say, but so like interior design, things like that, you see those styles change all the time, and for exactly the same reason. I think that people are you're so invested in looking at the same thing every day that you try and pivot, or you try and do different things. The average person, like, they don't care. They just like the things that look pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, we just stopped having carpet in bathrooms, like,
exactly. Yeah,
trends, they don't, like, fast trends don't actually shift that quickly, because nobody else is paying attention to what the new trend is.
But then you go into the maker community where we are, and then you see some of these people making furniture, and Jory Brigham is my favorite furniture designer maker. And you see somebody like that, and Jory is, to my knowledge, he has never made, and I'm not throwing shade at river tables. Don't mean to do that. I love river tables. All of you people making river tables, I love you, and I want you to buy some Calavera. So don't hate me. But, Jory is my favorite furniture designer, builder, maker. And I'm wearing the eponymous Jory Brigham special apron right this second. That's what this is. With the orange trim. Jory has never made a river table. Jory doesn't even use dovetails. Like, it's a very simplistic approach to, and I remember what he told me. I was like, where are the dovetails in this fancy piece of furniture? And he's like, I don't need dovetails. Like, it's totally unnecessary. I'd rather put all of that time and money and effort into, creating art, not just, doing something that everybody else is doing. Like, and dovetails obviously been around for thousands of years, but you follow what I'm saying. Like, he didn't feel the need to, put dovetails in just because that's how everybody makes a drawer. He's like, yeah, I can make a really nice rabbit and put this drawer together, and it's going to last just as long because it's a low stress application. Why would I put the time into making dovetails? And it made all the sense in the world, and probably carried over a lot into what I do now, which is, I don't have to burnish the edges of this apron. I don't have to, put a mirror finish on all of this stuff, because it doesn't need that. It's going to last forever, whether I put a burnished edge on it or not. Some of that stuff is just superfluous. No, so Jory, do y'all know who Jory Brigham is? Really? Oh my goodness. You got to look him up. Jory Brigham.
Okay.
Jory Brigham Design. He teaches classes in Palo Alto, California. Amazing, literally life-changing experience if you ever had the opportunity to go to one of the classes. But he was a big help in the all of the marketing that we did at Festool, just because he was a big inspiration for a lot of that stuff. But dude is making $20,000 ping pong tables. So, he's doing just fine not making river tables. He's making, probably $30,000 pool tables and ping pong tables and, cool stuff like that. So, that the art doesn't necessarily happen. The art doesn't happen where, 90%, 95, 99% of the market is. The art happens on the fringes. So I like to think in this maker community that we're all a part of, that's where the art should happen, right? And the tragedy is too strong of a word, but it would suck, to be a little more blunt, if everybody just did the exact same thing every day, all day, and everything looked totally vanilla and everybody just wanted to make river tables. And again, I keep apologizing for this because I don't mean to throw shade at river tables. I think a lot of people are making a lot of money. Backyard resin, for God's sake, people are doing great with river tables. But the art happens elsewhere, and those river tables, there's some fun stuff that you can do with it, but the art should be happening in the maker community where we exist. I like to think. I mean, that's why I'm here. I'm not here to do vanilla stuff. I'm here to have fun and do cool shit.
I think that's the cool thing about like coming into this community though, is that it might be something like a river table that brought you into, I want to play with epoxy, I want to do this, I want to do that. But the maker community is so diverse. There's so many different ways you can go with your art. And I think that it's really cool to see people like you, Mike, who you found something that you're passionate about, a niche, and you've ran with that. And it's been really successful for you. And I think that a lot of people also don't take the time to find what that niche is for them or what they really are passionate about. So if you're in this community and you're just chasing trends and you're trying to like keep up with the Joneses, it's not going to work. You just really have to like set that all aside and be like, nope, this is the thing that interests me. And it might not be what's trending in the maker community, but it's going to set you aside and it'll show through your passion.
Again, making a far more concise point and probably pissing off fewer people than I did, saying much the same thing. I think I saw a comment going across the bottom, and I don't know whether it was saying, Mike, you're a dick.
It said, Mike, probably, if you make river tables, I think less of you.
Okay. I did not say that.
He didn't say it, people. He did imply it.
No, what I want is for the art to happen on the margins. That's what I care about, is seeing the art happen. Because if the art doesn't happen, then we're all just here hanging out making videos of lame stuff. And art only happens when you push the comfort zone and do stuff that nobody else is doing, or maybe do it just slightly different, and you inspire somebody with your idea. So cool stuff.
You talk a little bit about like almost like niching down and like focusing on your product as opposed to everybody trying to do the same thing. And that was a conversation that was on another podcast in the last couple weeks too, was this big thing about like chair shops and luthiers and like really specializing in the fact that you don't need all these tools to do certain things, and like rebuilding a shop to just specialize in one thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild to think about niching down on products that you really like to build and can create a market for, versus like just creating whatever the fashion, like whatever the trend is.
100%. And that calls to mind my single favorite quote from any professor or teacher I ever had, or anybody that I ever learned from. His name was Joe Irvine. He was my professor at Notre Dame, and in marketing. But I remember he was his mantra, and he was always like, and let's see if I get this right. Be different from your competitors in ways that are meaningful to your customers. And that, as a guiding principle from a marketing or, ideation vision standpoint, is kind of all you need to know. Like, don't chase the trends. Don't just go be a generic. Don't just go, on the other hand, if you have a way of doing it so efficiently that you're going to make money by, being a price competitor, then go right ahead. But if you want to compete on innovation, and, innovation means more than just technology. It means something in woodworking and making. Well, and that is to say that, don't just be your competitors. Don't just go look at what they're doing and make the exact same thing, just marginally better. Go figure out what your customers give a damn about. And maybe it's live, laugh, love, but do it in a way that is meaningful and resonates with your customers, your targeted customers, which begs the question, like, do you know who your customers are? And that's a very critical thing. And really, it's a huge thing for me. And I can't say that I've figured it out. Like, I know who my current customer is. I got a real good bead on who my current customer is. Like, I know it is the maker crowd. It is absolutely, or it was before this podcast, and I pissed half of them off. Our customers are makers and woodworkers and furniture builders, metal workers, people who make stuff with their hands, just like us. And I just totally fell in love with that community. I did not, and I digress for a second. I did not anticipate being a maker when I left corporate and started this. I anticipated having a headquarters, a compound with 100 employees and an accounting and marketing department. And after I sold one of the companies I was involved with, I was kind of at a crossroads. It was like, or what am I going to do now? And I went in, I had a shop at the time, and I started making the aprons again. And it was like, oh, let's just make the aprons for a while. And this was, probably 5-6 years ago. And it was we'd been making the aprons for a few years, but when I sold the company, it was just upheaval and trying to figure out, like, okay, what are my next steps? And so I started making the aprons again, and, started making just making a better presence on social media. And all of a sudden the aprons just took off, just out of nowhere. And I had kind of planned on not doing that, but all of a sudden people fell in love with them and demand went crazy. So it was like, well, this is kind of awesome. So let's just do this. And pretty quickly I found how much I loved actually making these things. So, I think I was saying earlier that we're a very small company. It is me, my wife, and an assistant, and that is it. I make, literally, I stitch up every single apron, every single tool pouch. I do all of that stuff. I have an assistant who, Belle helps me do a lot of stuff, but that final assembly and sewing is all me. And I love it. Like, I would do this easily for the rest of my life, because I have just so fallen in love with that making aspect of it. So anyway, so I was trying to say, I know who my customer is. Now, the flip side of that is I need to branch out. I need to do a better job of discovering new customers, new markets. Just because it's not that I'm ever going to saturate Instagram. There are a billion people who would wear an apron on a daily basis. Unfortunately, not all of them follow my feed on Instagram. So I'm not in front of those people. So there's no way for them to know about us. So anyway, so I need to do a better job of figuring out who my other customers could be, not just who my customers are right now, and then very carefully and methodically go after those new customers. So
I have an idea. I have a couple ideas. I think I'll message you about them later.
please, love it.
Yeah. Speaking of like a new audience, yeah, because there's definitely the maker community, but there's a lot of other niche communities on Instagram that are very, very booming. So
Yeah. No, I would love to hear it. And that I hope that doesn't come across like, oh, I don't like, or I don't want to continue doing this, or the maker crowd's not supporting me. Man, I get so much support from this community. It's why I don't go to other markets. It's because I speak this language. And so real quick on that, like, people are always like, well, you should sell to the barbecue market, or you should sell to the equestrian market. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't speak that language. I speak the language of woodworking. I have spent my entire career learning and living and breathing and laughing and loving the language of woodworking. So I get this just innately. I could sit there and just write about it for hours and hours and hours. I don't know anything about the equestrian market. I know how to cook, but I don't speak to the barbecue market. They're talking about totally different things. It's this exact same product, but I don't speak that language. And so I am so thoroughly stuck in my comfort zone of the maker market, because I love these people and these are my people, and I don't want to leave. Like, I'm happy.
I think you could get into the barbecue market. You just need to make all the little pen pouch things. You just need to widen them up to like beer can size and just move them down a little bit.
That is a good idea. That is a great.
And burn it.
And they like fire. So
yep. There you go.
The maker community is filled with like the same type of person that also like you hit a certain point as you're aging where you have to decide, are you either going to get like really, really into collecting stamps, smoking meat, or do you become like a woodworker in your garage sort of thing? So, it's the same type of
a veritable Venn diagram.
Yeah. And in the
barbecuing, smoking meats, and woodwork.
In the middle, leather.
Love it. It is the tie that binds us all, literally and figuratively.
I love it.
You talk about like innovation in your product, and like just not from a technology standpoint, but from just innovating the products that you create. And I think that you do a really, really good job of that with your aprons, because you don't just have one apron, you have different models, different ways to customize them. And you're also one of the few places that has like namesake products after other makers, which is to me just the coolest thing. Like that's how you've made it in the maker community, is if one of these brands names something out of you. So how do you come up with new innovations and like new things for your product lines?
That's actually a great question, because when you're sitting in a vacuum and you're just sitting in the shop and it's like, okay, well, orders are coming in. Okay, we're hitting last year's numbers, and life's pretty good. Maybe I'll still take off on Friday. And so I'm going to just focus on existing orders this week. And so, for instance, I've been saying for, 6 months, like, oh, I'm going to redesign the upper chest pocket on the apron. And I know what I want to do, but I need to be forced to do that, or I need to collaborate with somebody to do that. Because a lot of times, and this is where I was going with that, is collaborations are fantastic. And that's a lot of times why I name things after people, because they've helped me create something out of nothing. And maybe the best example is Tom Silva. So I would say that, and I'm not a wood turner, but he is quite good. but he had a very specific thing that he wanted. And I don't know that y'all are familiar with the Woodturner's apron, the Silva edition, but it's the one. Hold on.
Grab it. Please hold.
We're missing our wood turner tonight.
It's this one where this upper shroud
Collar.
folds down behind the apron, so it's a veritable cabriolet of work aprons. But Tom Silva wanted and helped me design that very, very specific apron, so I named it after Tom Silva. But that would never have happened without him, and it was a year-long process of prototyping and sending it to him and getting it just right. And I still think that might be one of our, if not our most innovative products, because there's nothing like that. There are a variety of solutions for wood turners, but nothing like that. And I love it. Like, I don't wear one because I'm not a wood turner, but I love that product because it was exactly what the customer wanted. It fits the need and it works exactly as planned, which there was probably some dumb luck in there. Like, how on earth did that happen and work so well? But it did. And I love it. It's fantastic. So to answer your question, the innovation, where does the innovation come from? So much of it comes from the collaboration. And
feeding the need.
What's that?
Feeding the need. I mean,
Yes,
if you have somebody that says, I need a product that's going to do this for me.
Exactly. And if I were just being Michael Williams woodworker here, and I was like, oh, well, let me just make some stuff that would work for me, nobody would buy it because it's way too, me focused. Like, I'm not I might be Joe Customer in a lot of ways, but I don't want to design for me. I want to design for, other people and, for the maker crowd. But there are quite a number, every once in a while, somebody will ask for a special pocket or, like something specific. Paolini pocket. So, again, I'm talking to y'all like y'all know the line backward and forward. I don't expect you to, but Greg Paolini, one of my best friends in the world, this woodworker out of Asheville, just an amazingly talented individual, but he wanted a very specific pocket design on his apron. And I had just started the company and I was just like, yeah, this is not really what I want to put on the front of the apron. And now I'd say like 80% of the aprons we sell has a Paolini pocket on it. Like practically, not all, but almost all aprons that go out of here have something to do with a Paolini on it, because he basically just pushed me. You got to put this on there. And so finally I did, and it's been a fantastic product.
What is a Paolini pocket? What does that look like? Or you can always describe. I always forget that we're a podcast. We're not necessarily videos. So paint us a word picture.
Yeah.
So here's an actual picture. So here's one that I'm working on. So the Paolini pocket is this large, big, I don't even know what shape it is. What would that be? A trapezoid of some sort, or I don't know.
Trapezoid.
That's the bottom half of a triangle.
Yeah, let's call it that. Bottom half of a triangle. Anyway, it's that. And so it's side entry for putting your hands in it. But the nice thing about that is, it covers up a huge part of the apron. But so it does a few things. Is it adds a whole other level of protection, which is what an apron is supposed to do really well in the first place. But it gives you a place to put your stuff, and it keeps the dust out, because dust doesn't come in from the sides, it comes in from the top. So it's a side entry pocket. And I mean, it's just a pocket. We're not talking about rocket science here, but that's what he wanted. And it's not like that style pocket doesn't exist on other aprons in this universe, but he specifically wanted that. I pushed back on it. Finally, I put it on, and now, practically everybody puts one on their apron.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, it might be rocket science. I bet the astronauts would probably be okay with having one.
Yeah.
Keep their astronaut space bars and stuff handy.
That's
floating out.
They go out the sides, they go out the top. And the top.
That's true.
Brilliant.
With no gravity, it goes up. No, that's not right. It would just go anywhere because there's no gravity.
all their sawdust would escape.
It would. Do
And
people
then they
do
need-
woodworking in space though?
They could. Mars,
Could.
you know.
They could.
Imagine being the first person to like do a charcuterie glue up in space and then lasering Live Laugh Love onto it.
Oh, that would be good.
That's a record I want to have.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Braden's like hashtag goals.
That's right.
Oh, I love it.
If anybody has a hookup to like the SpaceX program or NASA, hook me up. Although I don't do well with speed or zero G's or like being upside down or any of the things I would need. But
You're never going to space.
I don't even like planes. I don't even like tall ladders. Like,
And your gag reflex sucks.
that's true. That's a really weird phrase.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to.
Sorry.
We're gonna workshop that one.
Okay.
Oh, that was great.
On that note.
Oh, that was great. Gold right there. So
Lord.
your
All right.
gag reflex sucks.
We are actually coming up. Well, we've actually passed an hour. I could probably sit and talk all night with you, Mike. And this has been like such a great organic conversation. It's been really great to hear some of your insights, and I think you're fantastic.
Sorry we didn't get to hang out more at Workbench Con. I saw you 1,000 times.
I know. I'm just a ping pong ball. I'm all over the place. It's really hard to pin me down.
Yeah,
And
that was a her thing, not a you thing.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of an introvert, so I was really just trying to avoid crowds and people in general.
Well, now that I know that, I will have to like.
I'm totally lying.
Purposely avoid him.
I'm gonna have to purposely like be like, nope, we're gonna sit and talk for a few minutes. How do you like?
I was kidding. Anybody can attest. Literally anybody can attest. I am a lot of things. I am not an introvert. Just, had 1,000 people. And so next time for sure. But yeah, I'm not. Sometimes I wish I was an introvert, but no. Way too much karate chopping.
There you go.
Sound effects are key, just so you know,
Yeah.
with karate chops. So, yeah, it just makes you're moving faster.
Nope, I'll work on it.
Yeah, I got deep well of sound effects for those.
So, Braden, why don't you do you want to thank our sponsors, and then I'll ask the final question here?
Yeah,
I'd like to thank Surf Prep and Hannah, because I think she's great, and Skylar too. They're awesome.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, we really appreciate everything that Surf Prep does for us. They let us make the podcast, and I'm going to be honest. We know that Hannah listens, but she never ever gives us constructive criticism on the fake made up like corporate slogans that we just make up for Surf Prep every single time, and we love that creative freedom. So if you want to go sand, I know that Mike, you talked about the Rotex, but the Rotex is, I'm gonna hot take, it ain't no Surf Prep.
Well, let me say, it had not occurred to me. Hannah, we didn't cover this, but I don't own a Surf Prep, so do with that as you please. I have not experienced the Surf Prep awesomeness, so we may just have to rectify that.
But we appreciate everything that Surf Prep does. We love what Scott over at George Supply does. I think that that conversation about not needing dovetails, I think that's probably because the maker's just using little George Supply CA glue. They just don't need it. So
that could be it.
But yeah, so we appreciate everything that our sponsors do. They let us do pretty much whatever we want. So hard to say no to that.
And on that, because I sponsor a lot of things, and I like to support a ton of stuff in the maker community. Good sponsors like that are amazing, and I do a couple of things on the side where I have a bunch of sponsors that are totally unrelated to this, and just the smallest amount, the smallest thing coming from a sponsor, the sponsor doesn't even always realize how absolutely important that is to keep stuff like this going. And so it's amazing when companies are supportive of the community and of people like y'all who are getting the message across and spreading the good word.
Absolutely.
Amen.
So I'm gonna play TJ, and I know TJ's not here tonight. He was very, very disappointed to miss out on this conversation. But something that TJ does every podcast is he ends it with a question. If there's something you can tell our listeners, a reason to kick open your shop door and blow off the dust and get to work, what would that be?
If there was a reason, oh gosh,
We need some motivation here, Mike. Give us the good stuff.
I'm just trying to figure out how to put it in a short version. Be one with the universe, and that's like that's distilling it way, way down. But one thing that I've learned in this experience that I've had in the maker community and making things with my hands and finding purpose beyond corporate is one with the universe. And read into that however you will, but I have experienced a level of bliss that I did not know was possible. And I even thought to myself that, gosh, everybody should experience this level of fulfillment and happiness. And if everybody was doing what they should be doing, then this world would be such an amazing place. But they don't. They go get sucked into their corporate drone jobs and hate what they do. And I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying that a lot of people are doing the wrong thing. So you need a reason to go kick open that garage door and make some awesome. Just freaking do it and make some sawdust and live that life that you want, not the one that you're paying the bills with.
Just go live that life. Love that life.
That
Laugh.
Maybe laugh at that life.
Laugh all the way into and out of the shop.
Live, laugh, love.
Mike, where can everybody find you? Where do you want them to find you at?
We can be found on Instagram at Calavera Tool and our website at also calaveratool.com.
I keep doing it, but I keep blocking my own face. There we go.
I got you. Yeah, calaveratool.com. Same as the Instagram handle. Give us a follow. We'll set some stuff on fire just for you.
Well, thanks
for you too.
Thanks a lot, Mike. We appreciate your time. I know it's late, so we appreciate you coming on. And yeah, I mean, if anybody needs an apron or some other fresh leather good, go get one.
That's right. Bring it on. We're here for it.
Only nerds don't.
Yeah, that's right. Team Calavera all the way.
All right. Well, we will be back next week at the same bad time, same bad channel. Next week we have Tyler from Temecula Yard Games, and he's going to be finishing up his raffle where he's raffling off a set of cornhole boards for Makers for St. Jude's. So make sure you go enter into that and then tune in next week, or I guess this week if you're listening to this next week, and you can maybe find out if you win. So we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.